justice, and the American way. We are the Voices of Dissent.
Thanks again, Gerald, for being on.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Hey, last week we had the sheriff of Allen County here, and we asked him, why does he have 2 tanks at the sheriff's department here in Allen County? And he said because the federal government gave it to us.
Well, you never know when them ISIS are going to show up, right there in Allen County. They'll come down the streets, man. You guys are thanking for that tank. I mean, come on. What's going on in this country is the militarization of America. I think I just read that something like 80 people were shot by cops last month. And it's just out of control, as the article in our Trends Journal by Dr. Paul Craig Roberts. And if anyone doesn't know who he is, he was the former Assistant Treasury Secretary under Ronald Reagan. A man that I respect for his geopolitical and economic insights more than just about anybody out there. He did a piece called Cops Gone Wild, and we've showed what's happened to this country. They say the fish rots from the head down, and it's more than just a metaphor. What the cops are doing, they're playing out what the military is doing. You're calling me. I'm in Colonial Kingston, New York. I'm literally looking at the courthouse from the 1700s. John Jay was a juror here, as were 3 Supreme Court justices. The founding fathers would be turning in their grave if they saw what happened to this country. So you see, it's all tied together. No foreign entanglements. That came from George Washington, a real commander-in-chief, a guy that led the forces and fought in war, not like these little boys that play golf and basketball and drive pickup trucks and play tough, and they can't fight their way out of a paper bag.
You brought up George Washington, Gerald. He's a huge hero of ours on the show. Joseph Walburn and I are absolute humongous George Washington fans.
What was his farewell address?
He's the only foreign entanglement. He's the only sitting president to participate on the battlefield. He led the troops into battle during the Rescue Rebellion. It's an unbelievable story. He's an unbelievable individual. In your article on the militarization of the police, Dr. Paul Craig Roberts' article, you talk about how if you have an encounter with law enforcement, you need to be subservient and you need to be serf in fiefdom Europe. Is that you made a point there?
Yeah, well, the thing is, what's going on are the cops are just playing out the role of the military on another level. We're all over the world killing people. I mean, how many people did they kill in Iraq and Afghanistan? It's estimated to be over 1 million. And a lot of these guys are coming back. They're whacked out on all these drugs. Mm-hmm. They've seen hell, and they're playing it out in their lives. And it's become the way of America. I mean, propaganda, by the way, if anybody can't find a good job and you need to make some money, propaganda is the way to go. You can do it cheaply and you get great results. I'm serious. They beheaded 2 guys that are in a war zone, by the way. Oh, my God, they beheaded 2. Oh, look at these evil people. Hey, whack them out with drones. That's okay, man. Bomb them like crazy. Yeah, so what? You bombed them. Hey, we didn't cut their heads off.
When you are a country continuously at war and you have no war to fight, don't you have to create wars?
And that's what we're going back to. It's become a war against our people, too. It's the same militarized mind. The military overseas, and the police have become a military against we the people. Who made up this stuff? I mean, what clown out there from NSA is listening to us now? Or watching everything that you're doing? Or going on your computer? It's the militarization of the United States. They're doing it abroad and at home. They're robbing us of all our rights. Right in front of our faces. These aren't conspiracy theories. They've raped the Constitution.
Gerald, Ric Runsteadt here, and I'm a huge fan of yours. I'm a huge fan of Paul Craig Roberts. Read almost everything he writes. When we look at this invade the world, invite the world, we have open borders. They say, well, you've got to lose all your liberties and freedoms because we've got this war on terror. We're going to go into war with all these countries. We're going to fund and back ISIS, then we're going to bomb ISIS. You look at this schizophrenic foreign policy conjoined with the militarization of police, conjoined with the NSA bugging our phones. I grew up feeling sorry for the people in the Soviet Union because they actually had a totalitarian government that bugged their phones. Our government bugs our phones now. And you look at all this, but then we throw in the economic component. The Federal Reserve, through its endless pumping and printing, has driven asset classes through the roof. And as we look at the fact that they've been able to militarize the police and get the police to think with a military point of view, tell us what happens when the Federal Reserve finally pulls all of these underpinnings of this artificial economy up, which maybe is happening. The stock market started to drop. We're starting to see slowing data from Germany and China and everywhere else. What happens if this thing comes crashing down economically? Have they arranged it in such a way that they can immediately move to military police rule?
Yes, I believe they have. When all else fails, they take you to war. And when the economy's breaking down and people are going out of their mind, they're going to make it. They're going to stop it, and that's why they're militarizing the police, as I see it. And when you look what's going on, we just had the worst week in the S&P 500 and Nasdaq since 2012. And as you pointed out, all of this cheap money printing, all it's done is enrich the private equity groups, the hedge funds, the vulture capitalists, and the multinational corporations who are buying back their stock. They're buying with cheap money. Merger and acquisition activity in the first half of the year rivals that prior to the collapse of the panic of 2008. And that's global. They've done it globally. It's the same thing. So they're going to be tightening it back. But again, it's all tied together. And this war mentality. Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, how could anybody make this stuff up? They're going to protect us by listening to us, watching us, and robbing our rights, right? They couldn't stop a guy from jumping over the White House fence and running through the joint.
And getting into the White House. Here's
there's an old adage about being in jail. You're secure in jail, but you're not for. What's that adage about?
Well, here's a thought. Okay, we're seeing this Ebola thing play itself out. What happens if either it gets truly out of control in the United States, which I don't know that it will or won't, or some crazy decides to weaponize it and hit a population with it? The population of America will beg the militarized police to come save them.
You got it. Look what happened when Obama hit the stage on the night before 9/11 and declared war against the Islamic State. Great, man. Crusades 2000. You gave the people a religion to hate
Right.
and two simple initials to remember.
And you saw 73% of the people buy it. Oh yeah, let's go bomb Syria. So an ISIS terrorist weaponizes Ebola, shoots it at Chicago, and we're going to stand there and say, "Oh, look at this! This is freedom. We can give this up to be safe, and we're going to allow our cops, our military."
And they're waging war that's going to continue to spread. By the way, you know, this whole ISIS thing, it's a plot against Italians. No. How are we going to sell Italian ISIS? Nobody's going to buy it anymore.
You know, one of the things that is most consistent, they found exactly how to manipulate the public. And one of the things they do is they say, in times of crisis, people turn to those who have power over them. So what they do is they say, we got crisis, one crisis after another. We got ISIS, we got Ebola. Oh my goodness, the Secret Service didn't stop some guy from being on the yard of the White House. Obama might not be safe, but at the same time, we have no border. They're sending MS-13 assassins into our country who are living next door to us maybe. What about our safety? How do you explain the fact that people are willing to be so compliant to a government and to the prostitute media that has lied to them so many times?
Well, that's in his Trends Journal.
Look what the country's become. You know, yeah, that's the whole story in the Trends Journal, exactly.
I don't care, right? I mean,
don't blame Obamacare. Blame I don't care. Look what the people have become.
Absolutely.
Look what they eat. Look at the garbage that they eat.
You know, that's the value in Phil Robertson from Duck Dynasty's statement, where I live, I am 911. You know, and what he's saying there is he's taken ownership of himself and his family and his property. And your article, I Don't Care, is an unbelievable expose of of the exact opposite of that attitude. It's the exact opposite that drove wagon trains across this country, and it's the exact opposite of American capitalism. It's I don't care.
For 50 years, Americans have been taught to be victims.
Absolutely.
You know,
it's just suddenly
pre 9/11. Oh, if your airline's hijacked, do what they tell you to do. If somebody pulls a gun on you, do what they tell you to do. You know, and unfortunately, it's now generational. So my question is for Gerald: what do you see on the horizon for America?
Well, what we're doing everything we can to. You know, I love this country. I say my blood is Italian, but my heart is American. I love America. I can never be me if I was born anywhere else. And what we're doing, we're launching on May 2nd from the most historic corner in the United States, the only corner where there's a pre-Revolutionary War building on each corner, Occupy Peace. And it's based on 3 words: no foreign entanglements, rebuild America. I stand with the Founding Fathers, not only Washington, but Madison and Jefferson and Franklin and one after another. You know, you mentioned before 1913 and the Federal Reserve and how they turned the country over to a private bank. You know who did that? If there's 6 words that you want to see the death of America, it's very easy to sum it up. Harvard, Princeton, Yale, bullets, bombs, and banks. You got a bunch of guys and women that from these Ivy League schools with real bad attitudes. You know, born on third base and thought they hit a triple, telling us how to live, what we should do, what we should think. You know, here comes Larry Summers again. One failure after another. Bad guys again with bad attitudes. And go back. 1913. Who's the president of the United States? Woodrow Wilson. Where was he from? Well, he was the president of Princeton. Yeah, what mother would name a kid Woodrow, you know?
Actually,
we give a guy with an attitude.
You hit it on the head. I think there should be a law against stupid names in politics. That's Saxby Chambliss. What the hell is Saxby? Come on. And there's a lot of those out there.
So anyway, here's a guy that gave us the Federal Reserve Christmas Eve when nobody's watching. They slip it through Congress. And then what does he do? He takes us to war. Now, that's our first real foreign intervention of the entire nation. And the war was ending in Europe, by the way. The United States, thanks to Woodrow, may he rot in hell.
The Germans were about to win it.
Well, the Germans had offered...
These are the people that are destroying the country. So what we're doing with Occupy Peace is we're going back to the roots of democracy, and they were sown over here, as well as other places around the country, in the Northeast. And we're launching Occupy Peace, and it's based again on 3 words: no foreign entanglements. It'll be May 2nd. We have permission from the mayor to close down the intersection. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be giving the people a takeaway. And that's what we're putting together.
Hey, Jared.
Okay, this is what we do to stop this madness. And one of the things we want to do, you mentioned about the borders. And I've been writing about this since 1989 in my book Trend Tracking, in Trends Journals, in Trends 2000, about why they're keeping the borders open to keep bringing in cheap labor. The biggest people behind it were the National Association of Manufacturers, and now there's nothing left to manufacture. And you look at Microsoft and all the other, the geeks over there in Silicon Valley. Yeah, Silicon. So they can bring in more cheap labor because we're too stupid over here. We don't have any brains. So they're driving down the workforce. So in Occupy Peace, it's close all the bases, bring home all the troops, self-defense, seal the borders. We can't take care of our own. After we take care of our own and we need more help, then we'll open them up.
Gerald, everything you're saying is so absolutely true. They flooded the country. Originally, I think it was for workers, but now we know through bots that 70% of the jobs that exist today will not be here in 30 years. So what are all these low-skilled, low-education, third-world immigrants going to do? And I think the answer is they're going to vote. And I think they're going to vote to affirm the power of the state. And so that's concern number one. Number two is when you talk about war, one of the biggest disappointments to me is how Christians, the evangelical right, has so completely bought into the idea that war is good. And it's like, biblically, where did it say, blessed are the war makers, Jesus Christ, the Prince of War? Where did this come from? But it has been a sales job done by the con artists and the mainstream media to convince them that if you are evangelical, that you want to have war, war, war. And my question for those people is, what do you think is going to happen if we have enough wars? Are they going to stop bugging our phones? Are they going to stop running up massive debts? Are they going to stop taking away our freedoms and our liberties if we kill enough people in the Middle East? And to me, the answer seems no. What do you think?
Well, the answer to me is I believe what Albert Einstein prophesied. He said, I don't know how the Third World War will be fought, but the fourth will be fought with sticks and stones.
Mm-hmm. Now, Gerald, unequivocally, peace is patriotic.
Hey, oh, you got it.
Unequivocally. If you were looking for a 3-word motto, peace is patriotic, okay? What I don't understand, and this is what I've never been able to get my head around, okay? And I am 100% supportive of bring them home. And I mean all of them.
All of them.
Bring them home. What happens then? You know, we saw in Iraq when we came home, what happened? You know, the whole thing kind of blew up.
Look who blew it up first time.
No, I understand. I understand. I'm with you on that. But the question is if we bring them home, what happens?
Well, if we keep them there, what happens?
Oh, no. I don't think that's acceptable.
They'll kill each other, go back to the way it was. Iraq, Syria, Jordan, all of these countries, again, going back to World War I, were carved up by a Frenchman and an Englishman, Sykes-Picot. Look at the map. Look at the lines on the map.
No, you're right. No, absolutely. They were carved up.
Oh, by the way, you know what's really going on, too, over here when you really start bringing it together and you start looking what's going on with Turkey and how they declared war against Syria last week. Mm-hmm. This is the Ottoman Empire wanting to regain its strength again.
Right, but you know, Gerald, if you look at it,
so to me, it's it's not my fight. And by the way, I'm not a pacifist. I'm a close combat practitioner.
No, absolutely. You talk about that in your Trends Journal,
I'm not.
And Mr. Perkins has 2 books that I'm going to download.
Kill them.
Gerald, you know, we have over 700 to 800 military bases in over 130 countries that we're occupying right now. Some people are saying, but if we pull those 60,000 troops that are occupying Germany 70, 80 years after the war, they're going to get invaded by Poland, or they might invade Lithuania. What are we going to do?
Here's part of Gerald Celente's 4 Rules of Peace. And by the way, I'm going to Russia very shortly to speak at a peace conference, and I'm one of the only American that they invited.
That's fantastic.
The 4 Rules of Peace. The first one is, if you call them out, take them out.
You bet.
You don't send somebody else to do your dirty work, little boy.
Hey, if you're the president of the United States and somebody says they're going to plant their flag on your house,
yeah, you go take them out.
You know what? You grew up in the Bronx, man.
About George Washington.
Absolutely. Saddle up. You grew up in the Bronx, man. You know, I mean, they called you out. You know.
Yeah, you better learn how to fight. And the other one is.
What's the second rule?
Well, I guess maybe we should have a no bullying zone, huh? I'm in the no bullying zone. You can't hit me.
Bullying is
so anyway, the second rule of peace is, if you want it, you go fight it too. Saddle up. You want to go fight in Iraq or Syria or wherever? Go on. Go. Leave me out of your psycho trip and send your kids and send your money and send yourself, and that's the third one. If you can't go fight because of whatever reason, send your dough to support it. If you believe it, pay for it. And number 4 is, as we used to say in the Bronx, payback's a bitch. So when they retaliate, don't go, oh, they're terrorists. No, it's called getting even, man.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
If any of us were in another country like Iraq, and our families were slaughtered, our neighborhoods are gone, there's no state, no city, no nothing, no future, you think we'd be angry and fighting?
You think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You think we'd want to kill the people that did it to us?
Yeah, probably.
That invaded our country based on lies?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. And now you're Libyan. Same thing. Hey, Libya was going along fine. We gotta get that evil dictator, Muammar Gaddafi. Oh, and you know who started that war?
Mm-hmm.
3 women. No, not the 3 witches of Macbeth. Well, maybe. Hillary Clinton, Samantha Powers, and Susan Rice. And that's a fact.
That's, yeah, you know.
Yeah, so if only the women were in charge. No. It's not about race, creed, color, gender. It makes no difference. It's who you are as a human being. And right now, we have low-life human beings running and ruining America. Did you see that little Leon Panetta or Pinata, whoever he is? That little clown? A guy with nothing more than a track record of loser after being the head of the Defense Department and CIA and sucking off the public tit for all of his life. Yeah, that Leon Panetta, who barely worked a day in his life and loves telling everybody else what to do. We're going to go into a 30-year war. Oh, brilliant, Leon. Brilliant. Here's another guy that couldn't fight his way out of a paper bag.
Gerald, one of the things I'm as contemptuous of as you are is these chicken hawks. I served in the military. I'm a veteran. My father was in World War II. And these little chicken hawks who are so tough when they're hiding behind a military, a drone. The reality is that what do you think is the probability that if the first 4,500 casualties in the second Iraq war would have come from the sons and daughters of congressmen, senators, Supreme Court justices, people in the Pentagon, what's the probability we actually would have fought that war?
0 to none.
Yeah, so they violated your second rule, which is if you want to fight it, go fight it.
Well, and here's the other thing: there is, especially with our current administration, hey, we'll use air power. It's gonna be superior and bomb it. There's never been a war in history, ever in the history of man, in 7,000-8,000 years of military history, where we didn't require infantry to go in and finish somebody off. It is never going to happen.
Look at the wars again, and
but Gerald, their goal is not to win it, is it? It's just to continue to fight it, right?
Exactly.
Right.
It's what Eisenhower warned us about.
That's exactly what he warned us about, isn't it?
Yeah, a 5-star general, a supreme commander of the Allied forces, 2-term president. He leaves office, and his farewell address is the military-industrial complex is robbing the nation of the genius of the scientists, the sweat of the laborers, and the future of the children. And it's coming from Eisenhower.
But he could have stopped it for 8 years.
This is a man that saw death and the destruction of war and wanted no part of it, and that's why there weren't any, and that's why he wouldn't get involved in Vietnam to bail out the French.
Right. If you look at our current policy, Aaron Russo was friends with Michael Rockefeller, who told him that the idea of the war on terror is this: a war that will never end, a war that we can never declare victory, a war we can never cease, because, hey, there could always be terror. Now, how do you...
There's always a boogeyman.
There's always a boogeyman. So, okay, now we got Osama bin Laden, now we got to get another boogeyman. Oh, we got ISIS. Every time that there's a pause in the action, they say, oh, here's the new boogeyman. And the public says, oh, my goodness, you want to take my freedoms, my liberties? Well, okay, because
there's a boogeyman.
Yeah, some bin Laden gonna get me. And so they're able to con the public with interlocking with the prostitute. So, Gerald, how do we combat this?
That's what we're going to be doing with Occupy Peace. And our mission is, again, rebuild America, no foreign entanglements. The people in Detroit, can't they turn on their water if they can't pay for it? The country's infrastructure is rotting. Our school system, the numbers just came out now from OECD. I think we're ranking around 32nd. And again, we pay the most. And you're looking at our healthcare system as well. We pay the most, and we're way down there in ranking. So what we're saying is we need to rebuild the country. And what we want to do is redirect that money that Eisenhower talked about back into the country. So what we're saying, bring the troops home and put them to work over here. Let's start getting our country back in shape, physically, mentally, and morally.
You talk about no foreign entanglements. I have no doubt that ISIS is real and that Al Qaeda was real and they were perfectly wanted to kill us. I think we have 2 buildings in New York City that show that. The problem is, what happens when they come here? We've done nothing to protect our borders.
Again, that's what we do. We close it down. And again, I wrote about in Trends 2000. I wrote in 1996. I wrote about Crusades 2000. That you'd wake up in the new millennium and there'd be a new crusade.
There always has been.
And exactly. It's about the 17th, I think. And so what we're saying is, why did they attack, whatever story people want to believe about 9/11, the fact is, and this is not something they don't talk about, by the way, besides the Twin Towers coming down, which you mentioned, nobody talks about the Pentagon getting whacked.
Yeah, or the plane crash in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, but you know what? If I'm a Middle Eastern terrorist...
Whatever it was, the Pentagon, they hit General Headquarters. So what I'm saying is, what caused it? So we were writing about this for years. It's called the United States imperialism. It's setting up countries like Saudi Arabia. It's people like Jimmy Carter, who created Mujahideen to defeat the Russians in Afghanistan. They're the parents of ISIS. When you look at the lineage, and it's our foreign entanglements of all of these dictators that we put up there, and we write that poverty, imperialism, like it or not, whatever you want to call it, they're going to push the people to follow these radical clerics. You can see it happening. So again, another one of my lines is, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it.
Do we have to lose everything in this country, though?
No, and that's why we want peace.
Well,
and
okay.
What you said, one of you guys, peace is patriotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. But there's a whole bunch of people that still want to kill us. And we're letting them in. If I'm a Middle Eastern terrorist, I can get a student visa and be at Fort Wayne at one of the 5 colleges next week.
Any border you want to. You could be a kid and float over the border. We have to protect ourselves. We're not going to eliminate it overseas. We have not been able to do it. We lost Iraq. We're in the longest war in the history of America. The Afghan war with no
the forever
end in
war.
Sight.
That's what you call the forever war.
Yep.
So with all the people abdicating their responsibility and not caring about themselves or their country, and the government continually breaking our contract, which is the Constitution, by, like you said, tapping our phones, checking our metadata, listening to all of our conversations that we have, what can we practically do as an individual and as a people?
Oh, just what you're doing, and just keep doing it. And people ask me this all the time, and I say it very simply. Find your courage, your dignity, your respect, integrity, and passion. You're not here to take anybody else's trip, and you do whatever you can do. To me, hell is taking that last breath of life and knowing that you weren't the person you said you were or could have been.
Yeah.
So it's a moral issue to me, and it's just as simple as do unto others as you would have them do unto you.
It's really that simple, isn't it, Gerald?
That's simple.
It really is.
And what you guys are doing is the do, and you keep doing it in every other way, and you keep living it. And one of the things I do, I try to do the best I can.
Yeah, but Gerald, there's not enough of us.
All the ancestors, where I came from, and I thank them for everything that they've given me, and to help guide and protect me, and to instill me with wisdom, inspiration, and enlightenment, so I could do the best that I can.
Yeah, we talk about keeping us safe, and they keep using that as the auspices for taking away our freedoms and doing all the things they're doing for these eternal wars. But the whole thing of keeping us safe is they inspect less than 0.5% of the cargo containers. We have no border. Osama bin Laden, James O'Keefe did a great documentary where he walks across the border. If we look at this, we have no structural territorial integrity as far as preventing someone coming in and attacking the country. And at the same time, we're over there bombing and invading and propping up despised, hated third world dictators all over the Middle East. In Bahrain, they slaughtered the people on behalf of the quote unquote holy family, the royal family, the imperial dictators there. And we backed it. We supported it. We encouraged Saudi Arabia to go there. So we're making the people, the quote Arab street, hate our guts. And then you got people like Clint Eastwood coming out with the movie Sniper, where the heroes are all there in a foreign land that they're occupying, and the evil villains is the little boy trying to drive away the what they perceive as the imperial crusaders who are now invading their country. How is this all going to wrap together if we continue this invade the world, invite the world mentality?
It's going to be hell. And it's what I was asked to go to VMI, Virginia Military Institute, in 2000 to talk about New Millennium Warfare. Matter of fact, one of the people there on the panel after I gave the address was General Anthony Zinni.
Absolutely.
Oh,
yeah, and we had lunch together, and he wanted to meet me. And we were talking about, war overseas. He said, if we're not, words to the effect, I don't want to misquote him, that, we're in a war where it's really not our future really doesn't depend on it. It's not going to end well. Mm-hmm. And I was talking about what the next war would look like. And as that saying goes, generals are always fighting the last war. The new war will be a war of weapons of mass destruction. It'll be dirty bombs. It'll be suitcase-sized nukes. It'll be biological warfare. It will be hell. And again,
don't forget cyber war.
Anybody that knows how to count up to 5 and could walk and talk on their own, and I don't mean, I'm not being, talking about people with disabilities. I don't mean that, of course. I mean, just if you're half awake. They couldn't stop a guy from jumping over the White House fence and the guy ran slow. How are they going to protect us? So I would say to anybody else coming up with all of these plans, save it for someone else, Jack. How about this one? The Super Bowl. Oh, yeah, we got a no-fly zone. You got all these guys out there with enough weapons to go through the battle of the bulge around the stadium, and some guy gets on a bus in Jersey with credentials from an old rock concert a couple of years ago, and gets through, and he breaks in as they're interviewing the player of the game. So save it with your baloney about how you're going to protect us.
Truth, justice, and the American way. We are the voices of dissent.